Your life can drastically change with one decision. One decision that you're avoiding to make right now. You've been sitting in the same spot for weeks, thinking of all the ways that things can go wrong, and sitting in the passenger seat while fear drives you. Well, I've been there before. I've even had my car repossessed twice, so I understand the fear. But today I'm going to share with you two powerful principles that I've learned and that I live my life by that's going to help you move from being paralyzed from fear to going after what you really want. 18 years ago, I started a video production company at 17 years old. And for a very long time, I just had my head down, doing the work, not focused on, trying to get accolades or uploading to social media. But 5 years ago, I made a very conscious decision that I would step out of the shadows. In 2019, I got invited to speak at a copywriting conference, a marketing conference called the Copywriter Club in Real Life. I had been to this conference before in 2018. There were only about 50 people there. But when I got invited to speak in 2019, and I went on the first day to the rehearsal before the speakers go on stage, when I walked in the room, I realized this room wasn't set up for 50 people. It was set up for 150 people, 3 times the size. And truthfully, I began to panic because I had never spoken in front of a group that large. And as I thought about it, the reality is that I'm not even supposed to be speaking in front of this group. I'm not a copywriter. Although I'm a filmmaker and I've been doing marketing videos, it's not the same thing. And so I began to tell myself, you know what? I don't think I could do this. I went back up to my hotel room. I started pacing back and forth and trying to figure out, how am I going to tell these organizers that, you know what, I can't speak. Like, the one thing that kept coming up in my mind is I'll just let them know, hey, I'm feeling sick. I don't feel my best. I think I'm going to back out of this. Well, as I paced back and forth literally for like 2 hours, I ended up coming up with an idea that I would record myself on my iPhone giving the speech. So just the audio version, that I would record a voice memo, and then I would take that voice memo and play it on repeat while I sleep. And so that's exactly what I did the night before my talk. I recorded myself a 30-minute speech, put headphones in my ear, and then I went to sleep. And so by the very next day, right before I'm getting on stage, I'm still freaking out a little bit, but what it did is it made me feel a little bit more confident in the fact that, you know what, I'm going to get on the stage, but I'm not going to mess up.
It's awesome to be here, but before we get started, I have a confession to make. I am an adrenaline junkie. I love extreme sports, and I love high-action adventure. And so when my girlfriend surprised me with 2 tickets to go jumping out of an airplane 10,000 feet in the air, I was extremely excited. Has anyone ever gone skydiving before?
And not only did I not mess up, the crowd loved it. And as you can tell by some of the comments, like, people were not just blown away, but the one comment in the center that you're seeing, she mentioned how years later, she had forgot most of the other talks at TCC IRL, but remembered mine. And that leads to the first principle. The only limitations you have are the ones you create. I'll say it again, the only limitations you have are the ones that you create. And I know what you're thinking. You're just like, no, Jude, you don't get it. You don't get it. Like, I have a wife and kids and people that are counting on me, and I gotta make sure this works. The only limitations you have are the ones you create. No, Jude, you don't get it. You don't get it. There was a storm that hit us last time and we've never really fully recovered. The only limitations you have are the ones that you create. No, Jude, you don't get it. You don't get it. If this doesn't work, man, I really just can't take another hit. The only limitations you have are the ones that you create. Because you're telling me all the reasons that things can go wrong, but what if they go right? One of my mentors, Myron Golden, has a saying where he says, the words you say change what you see. And what that means is there are solutions. There are ways that things can go right, but are you willing to look for them? Like, can you really sit in the idea that something will go right and that the client will say yes to working with you, even though it's a higher fee than they were expecting? Or that you go after the speaking engagement and not only you do a great job, but then it opens up more doors for you, right? The only limitations you have are the ones that you create. I was coaching this filmmaker, and we'll call him Bradley. Bradley's not his real name, but Bradley was making a big transition, and it wasn't a transition by choice. Bradley had been running a video production company with a business partner, and now this business partner was going through some personal issues and decided that, he wanted to exit the business completely. And for Bradley, this was a big deal because this business partner, this friend, was not just a business partner. He was the one running the business. Like, Bradley did the video production and the business partner ran the actual business doing sales and marketing. And so for Bradley, he was afraid that the business would crumble. Like, he wouldn't really be able to run it because he's never done it before. I said to him, well, if we step away from the sales and marketing, how many clients do you feel like you can transition over to just working with you? He said 4. I was like, 4, okay. And then he said that he wanted to get those 4 on a retainer. Like, that would make him feel safe, getting those 4 clients on a retainer. And I was like, okay, so 4 clients on a retainer, how much would you charge him? And he said $10,000. And I was like, wait, $10,000? So you'd get 4 clients that you already have a relationship with, and you charge them $10,000, which is $40,000 a month, $480,000 a year. It's like, what's the problem? And he said, well, I want to make sure to do right by my friend. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just taking over the business. And truthfully, it's a lot of risk to just run the business by myself. And I was like, okay. And so I was like, what's the alternative? He's like, I don't know. I think, I should just wait it out and see what happens. I think it'll work out. I was like, you think it'll work out? I was like, Bradley, it's not as scary as you think. Like, you've made up in your mind that it's this big, gigantic, scary thing, but truthfully, it sounds like you got most of it worked out. You could take on 4 of the clients, not only take on 4 of the clients that you already have a relationship with, but take them on and charge them $10,000 a month. And truthfully, it just sounds like you need to have a difficult conversation with your friend. I was like, what's really scary is not taking any action at all and thinking somehow it's magically gonna work out. Like, it's just gonna magically go in your favor. You already have the leverage. Just take the next step. And truthfully, take the next step, not just to go after the clients, take the next step to bet on yourself. Maybe you think Bradley is being silly, right? Because the answer seems so simple. But truthfully, I've made the same mistake before. I've taken something that can be simple and made it complicated. Why? Because I start to tell myself stories of things that can go wrong and get wrapped up in my emotions and start to create limitations that aren't there, that have never been there. So much so that I begin to get paralyzed by the next step. I get paralyzed by fear, and it takes forever to take the next step. I can gladly say I checked in with Bradley recently, and Bradley not only did take the next step, but he had good news to report. And this is the direct text. If you noticed, he said he landed those retainers, so my next 3 to 6 months should be solid. Closed all the retainers. Imagine he didn't even go after them because in his mind he was making up stories. So of course I had to ask him, was it as hard as he was thinking it would be? And you see the first 2 words of his response. It wasn't. But you know what else I learned from Bradley's story that didn't stick out to me immediately, but it's also another principle that I live by? When Bradley was telling me about this transition that he was having to make, and not only bringing on what he felt like he could bring on the 4 clients, he told me that the clients, a few of them had already committed to wanting to work with him, even though the transition would happen. That leads to the second principle, the one that is extremely critical for you to get no matter what you're doing in life. You are the value. You see, oftentimes we make up in our mind that it's the skill that we have. We make up in our mind that it's the thing that we do. We make up in our mind that it's how talented we are. But in reality, the client doesn't care anything about that. Like, I remember speaking to an interior designer recently, and she mentioned how she went into business in an area of California where there were 2,500 interior designers within a 25-mile radius. So what would make the difference as to why somebody would want to work with her versus working with someone else? It's her. You are the value. There's no one else that have had the same experiences that you have had. There's no one else that has live the life that you've lived. There's no one else that can see things the way that you see them. There's a very unique perspective that you bring to projects, to working with people that is unique. It is a fingerprint, as unique as a fingerprint. You are the value. All right, so how do you apply this? There are two very simple ways to apply this. The first thing is to write down, take 5 minutes right now and write down, what are you downplaying? Right? Like, what are you downplaying? What are the experiences or stories that you've been through in your life that only you've gone through? Even though someone may have gone through something similar, but it's not exactly the way that you have gone through it. They haven't come out of it the same way that you have come out of it. So what are the stories that you're downplaying? What are your strengths that you're downplaying? What is it that seems to bother other people, but it doesn't bother you? What is your style that you're downplaying? Your personality, the way that you go about doing things. And the second way to apply this is to take bold action. Take bold action right now, today, and decide whatever it is that's scaring you most right now, whatever it is that has you paralyzed by fear, take bold action. It would have been easy for me to reach out to the organizers from the story that I told you in the beginning, reach out to the organizers and tell them that, you know what, I'm sick and I can't do this. And truthfully, they wouldn't have looked at me any differently. But instead, I took bold action. And that bold action from 2019 has truthfully led to some incredible, incredible moments. It's led to me even sitting here talking to you today. So take bold action. It's not as scary as you think. The only limitation you have is the one you create. Most recently, about 3 years ago, I learned how to swim for the very first time. Now, I grew up in Pompano Beach, Florida, which means that I had beach access. The beach was near me, but I had never learned how to swim. And so 32 years old, I learned how to swim. And immediately after learning how to swim, so I took about 3 months of learning how to swim. Immediately after the very first Labor Day, I've already made up in my mind, I know how to swim now. So wherever I'm going, whoever house I'm going to, I'm getting in the pool. And so I ended up going to my best friend's uncle's house. My best friend is Nia, so Nia's uncle's house. And they're barbecuing. We're having a good time. It's not a lot of us, maybe 8 or 9 of us, and we're all around the pool. But I'm in the pool. I am swimming in the pool and doing backstrokes and doing all these things now that I know how to do them. And so I go to the deep end of the pool. And as I'm coming back from the deep end of the pool, I guess I must have got tired because I'd been in the pool for about an hour. I try to put my foot down. But when I try to put my foot down, I can't feel the bottom of the pool. And so I'm trying to put my foot down, can't feel it, but I'm tired and can't continue to swim, and I begin to panic. And so as I begin to panic, I'm taking in water, right? And I'm literally feel like I'm drowning. And so I begin to wave my hand up in the air. Like my hand is up in the air. My body is still in the water, but my hand, I'm able to wave it up in the air, hoping that, hey, everyone's around the pool, they'll see. I do it once. No one comes. I do it again. No one comes. And so I'm like, all right, this is it. This is how I die. I don't know what else to do. Well, I muster up the energy. I allow my body to go down to the base of the pool. And with all the strength that I have, I jump up from the bottom of the pool to the top. And I break. As soon as my head breaks to the top, I yell, help! Well, luckily my best friend Nia was the first one to see. And I remember as soon as I break to the top and my body goes back down, all I can see is Nia diving into the pool. Well, Nia is 5'2", 130 pounds. I am 5'9", about 180 pounds. And so Nia has to figure out a way to not only keep me from drowning, but keep herself from drowning because I'm clearly heavier and taller than she is. Well, some way, somehow Nia figures it out and she gets me to the edge of the pool and I hold on for dear life and I'm gasping for air. Well, as I sit on the edge of this pool, about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, Nia's mother comes around and she's like, Jude, hey, let's get back in the pool. And as cool and calm as I could say it, I'm like, nah, I'm all right. I'm good. And Nia's mother looks at me and she says, Jude, I'm 55 years old. And honestly, I have a lot of regrets in life because I allowed a lot of things to stop me. I allowed a lot of things that scared me to stop me from just doing what I really wanted to do. And she was like, I get that you just had a near death experience, but I just want you to get back in this pool and just try again. And honestly, I heard what she said, and I did get back in the pool, and I swam for another hour. I want to end with these words from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We must keep moving, we must keep going. If you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But by all means, keep moving. Keep moving in the right direction. Keep going after the things that scare you most, because the more that you go after them, the more courage you'll have to continue to do bigger and bigger and bigger things. It's not as scary as you think. The only limitation you have is the one that you create.